So, how is your final interview, or the interview you have just before your assessment centre for some forces? Just like a series of short stories, each one of those stories just having several short chapters. So I've just been coaching one of my clients, and that's one of the things that we talked about, and the penny really dropped in respect of how he needed to prepare for his final interview. So my name is Brendan, and for those of you who haven't seen any of my videos before, for several years now I've been coaching and supporting people for the police recruitment process. A good 4,000 plus people are now in the police service as a result of my support. And here's just one of the accounts of how we do this. So pin your ears back, folks, because this is gold, absolute gold for you. A few ideas that are going to really help you nail your final interview. Quite apt, I think, because I've had several people in the Facebook support group, and if you've not heard of that, check out the link below, whether this is on YouTube or Facebook. We've got over 9,000 people now, approaching 10,000 people who are part of the Bluelight Police Recruitment Facebook support group. A lot of them are serving officers, and we've got several people in there who are now from Force HR teams. So, oh, excuse the noisy trains there, my goodness. There's all sorts of tooting going on today because there's a little bit of work on the railway line near us, but please forgive that background noise. So anyway, back to the point. So coaching this client today, he had a good story, so the content was there almost, but it was a very, very short story, And the thing about his story in his interview answers is they didn't have much structure. So like any book or any short story that doesn't have a structure and the content isn't engaging enough, you start losing interest. And that's exactly what will happen with the interviewer. The interviewer will start losing interest. And the one thing you've got to do is engage with the interviewer. You've got to get yourself across the metaphorical table and engage with them, build up a rapport with them in a way that's going to enable you to be seen as one of the more favourable candidates. And the way to do this is to get out of telling a story as if you're telling it to one of your friends in the pub or one of your members of family when you come home from work. The content's there, but it's not detailed enough and it's not nearly structured enough. So one of the things we looked at, he said, well, should I use the STAR format? And asked him to explain that was, and he got all confused because everyone knows that S stands for situation, everyone knows that the T stands for task, everyone knows that the A stands for action and the R stands for result. But when I ask people what the difference between task and action is, that's when people start getting confused. Task is what I intended to do, and the action is what I actually did. So one's in the one tense and one's in the other tense. It's not quite what they mean, it's not actually what they're after. So those of you who've been my clients for a while will know that I favour a slightly different model, the SAL model, which stands for situation. And here's the thing, these are the chapters. You're going to tell a story, it's going to be a compelling story, and each one of those parts of the story is going to be like a little chapter. And if you treat it like that, the interviewer will hear it in a way that they want to hear it, because it enables them to mark you really well. Whereas if you just tell this rambling story, as my client yesterday described, that was quite rambling, that wasn't it? And it was all over the place. Because his story lacked structure. So think of this as each one of the chapters to your short story, which is the answer to the question. Whether it is tell me about a time when you've had to make a difficult decision, where you've had to account for that decision to others, or the one we practiced today was tell me about a time when you have had to work in collaboration with others to solve a problem. Or tell me about a time when you've had to challenge inappropriate behaviour. Doesn't matter what it is, all of these are sort of common questions. How have you managed change? How have you supported another person? How have you, at a time when you've had to work under pressure to meet a deadline? Very, very common questions in the police recruitment world. Tell the story with chapters. Chapter 1, in my role as, a situation occurred. So you're describing a situation. And in that chapter, I want you to include the impact on you, the impact on others, the impact on the team, the possible impact on the end user, which could be a customer or the community. So what I aim to do then, or what I hope to achieve, and this is the start of your second chapter, the A of SAL stands for aim. Because people don't say this, do they? I mean, when was the last time you heard someone say, so the task I set myself? And that's what people come out with at interviews. No one talks like that. So why do you talk like that at an interview? I've come across some incredibly engaging people in my seminars and in my one-to-ones, and I just love talking to them because they've got such an interesting story to tell. And as soon as we start practicing our interview questions, they turn into someone else, and they start using words that they'd never use normally. And I just think, why have you done that? What happened? Where did the real person, where did the Matt, the Susan, the Jennifer go? You've suddenly become someone else. Well, isn't that what they want to hear? No, they want to hear the real, authentic and emotional you. They don't want to hear some plastic story full of buzzwords and competency phrases, because they'll tune out. The people who are interviewing you are real live inspectors and chief inspectors and sometimes sergeants. They come from an operational world where that kind of competency BS is just not tolerated. So, the A stands for the aim. What I aim to achieve, what I hope to achieve. And these were the options I considered to achieve that aim. So describe 2 or 3 options. And then describe the option you chose and your rationale, why you chose that option. And then you're at the end of that second chapter, ready to move into the 3rd chapter. Chapter 3, the action you took. So I took the following action, and then describe that action. I'll do a separate video after, because often, and in the case of my client today, what people do is they describe what they did, but they don't describe how they did it. So that'll be subject of a separate video. I'll see where I put it. I might put it in the client only group. The client only Facebook group is just for my clients, my paying clients. They get all the good stuff, if you like. Well, you're still getting good stuff here, but they get the really good stuff. But they're paying for it, so why not? Why not? Not just what you did, but how you did it. And that is so important. So important. It took 7 layers of me saying, yes, but how did you do that? Yes, but how did you do that? To my client today, before they gave me exactly what the police are looking for. So I'll give you a clue. They went from, I cooperated with my managers to do whatever it was. Actually, no, I'll share it with you in the client only group. I'm teasing you there, aren't I? Apologies. Well, actually, no apologies. I'm just teasing you there. If you want that good information, because it's solid, it's just, you know, I often find it takes 5 to 7 layers of me asking, yes, but how did you do that? Before the penny drops. And people realise that, that's what they're after. That's what they're after. The police like detailed evidence. That's just the way they think. That's who they are. So anyway, we're at the end of chapter 3 now, and now we can talk about chapter 4, the results. Now, you might be thinking they want to hear about how everything in the garden is rosy and everything you touch works out perfectly. No, not at all. Nothing could be further from the truth. Because the thing is, if you're telling me about a time when you've given 120% without being asked to do so to deal with a difficult or challenging situation, and then you try and persuade me that everything worked out perfectly, then it's not challenging and it wasn't difficult. And you weren't giving 120% without being asked to do so. You were just describing some simple day-to-day thing that you do. And I'm not as interested as I would be interested in the person who's telling me about how it didn't quite work out. And the beauty of that is that we can now move into the penultimate chapter, the learning. Chapter 5. To think then, chapter 5, the learning. So now we can talk about what I learned from this. And when you talk about what I learned from this, I don't want you saying, so I learned the power of open questions, or I learned it's good to communicate, or I learned it's so helpful to be helpful. No, those are just statements of fact. What I'm looking for there is for you to say something like, so I reflected on this, discussed it with one of my dear friends or close colleague, and what I realised was, and describe the part of it that didn't quite go to plan or you didn't do very well. So what I'd do differently next time is, so you describe what you do differently next time. And now we're ready to move into the last chapter. If you've got the time and you're sufficiently confident, we can add a K and a U to the SAL model. So far we've got SAL, KU. KU stands for knowledge and understanding. So what we talked about with my client today, who's applying for a force that's really into early intervention and working with partner agencies to achieve that early intervention, to prevent the crimes, prevent the health problems, prevent the educational problems, mental health problems, drug and alcohol problems, working with families at an earlier stage as a partnership. So this force is really, really intensely keen on this. So we talked about the importance of collaborating and being able to collaborate with other organisations, and how important this is to the force to achieve its strategic aims. So you're showing off a little bit there, you're demonstrating your corporate knowledge of that particular force. So there you go, folks. My gift to you today, how to turn your interview into a series of short stories in this compendium, this book that's called My Name and My Journey to Becoming a Police Officer. So you've got to get through this stage. So treat it as a series of short stories, and each one of those short stories has got chapters which stands for situation, aim, action, result, learning, knowledge and understanding, your corporate knowledge of the force. If you do that in that structured way, you'll nail it. So you've got the content, you've got the structure, and now what you've got to practice is the delivery. So there's so many of my clients who aren't doing this. My clients, the ones that I keep telling them and drilling into them, practice, 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 they're still not practicing. When I have a group of perhaps 20 or 30 people in front of me and ask the question, how many of you have actually done a dummy interview with a loved one, where you've set up the room like an interview room and you've done a dummy interview for an hour where they've asked you these questions, the sort of questions you're going to get? How many of you have done that? Invariably, the answer is 0. Look, the hard work is in the rehearsals, folks. So do the hard work, do it now, so that on the day you can just completely nail it. So if you'd like to find out more, then the links below will take you to my services, my one-to-one coaching, my online courses, my webinars for those of you who are in the Bluelight Police Recruitment Support Group. The webinars I do are only for members of those groups. So there's so much available for you. And there's so many opportunities as well to practice. If you're thinking I've got no one to practice with, you've got a community of over 9,000 people to practice with. All you need to do is reach out and someone will get back in touch and they will practice with you over Skype, FaceTime, Messenger, whatever. I've even heard recently of a couple of people getting together who found out they live near to each other. They got together at a coffee shop and started practicing with each other. So there you go, thank you Costa Coffee. And that's where it was at a Costa Coffee. So look, it's a great community. Please do come and join it. The link's below. I shall see you in there. I look forward to accepting you into that group. Just leave a little note, because it asks you a question, why do you want to join the group? Just say, because you told me to in one of your videos, Brendan, and I'd be delighted to accept you into the group. I'll speak to you soon. Bye bye for now.